My wife confronted me with the fact that either I allow her to see her lover, or I lose my wife, my house, and half of my property. How do you like that? It was unexpected for me, and I'm still not a fool, so I arranged for my wife a little retribution that she will remember for the rest of her life. This is the moment. An ideal evening unfolds before me. I'm in the optimal lounging position with my feet elevated above my hips, a key element for relaxed repose. A chilled beer rests comfortably in my right hand. My ebook reader rests nearby, inactive as it should be during this time of tranquility. No external stimuli are required, just a sip of beer now and then. This moment of calm is much needed. I simply need to exist, to be alone above all else. Solitude is the sole acceptable state for me right now. The sun prepares to set, casting warm hues across the sky. The sea lies placid, devoid of wind or noise. It's the epitome of peace. My sailing yacht, Halcyon, is anchored in a secluded bay near a Greek island. Though island might be too generous a term, it's more like a sizable rock. Nonetheless, it offers two distinct advantages: 0 inhabitants and a superb anchorage. The bay's depth accommodates my 50-foot yacht, sheltered from the open sea. Anchoring the yacht was a bit of a challenge, given my solitary status. I had to secure a second mooring point due to the bay's constraints. Yet the manual labor proved satisfying after a day of leisurely sailing in the Aegean Sea. Now, with everything settled, the beer chilled, and the silence prevailing, everything feels just right. My mind inevitably drifts back to Julia whenever I have a moment to spare. Despite my efforts to push her out, she always finds her way back in. I seldom reminisce about the pleasant memories we shared, as doubt clouds even those. I used to believe we were blissfully happy together, but now I see it as a facade. She played the part of a loving partner so convincingly, it's a pity no camera captured her performance. She would have won an Academy Award for sure. Anger surges within me once more. No, I must stop this. Look at the sea. Feel the warmth of the sun. Appreciate the beauty around me. There are doves nearby, fascinating and often overlooked creatures worth observing, especially in this moment. Relax. I abruptly decide to double-check the mooring lines, though I know they're secure. I just need something to distract me from thoughts of her creeping back in, from memories of Julia, from the evening I uncovered the truth. No, I refuse to dwell on it. Damn it. This is driving me insane. Driven by a sudden impulse, I plunge into the sea, swimming a brief distance to clear my mind and thwart the resurgence of anger. I'm determined not to succumb to the seething rage that has driven me away from others, particularly women, in recent months. I must prevent my fury from harming innocent bystanders, as it has done too often lately. My sister Annette was the one who warned me that I'm a ticking time bomb, and she was right, as she often is. So I've chosen to live as a recluse for everyone's sake. However, instead of dwelling in a dank, desolate cave away from sunlight, I've opted for a lavish sailing yacht. Despite my disillusionment with humanity, I'm not foolish. Returning to my boat, I decide to occupy myself by cooking. Unlike Julia, who rarely cooked at home, leaving that task to me, I take charge. Reflecting on the many responsibilities that fell to me, I suppress thoughts of bitterness. I gather eggs and mushrooms to prepare an omelet, not out of hunger, but as a means to occupy my mind with a tangible task. Once more, I find myself in awe of the quiet and seclusion of this place. It's currently my favorite spot in the world, and I'm grateful that it's open to the public, allowing anyone to enjoy its tranquility whenever they please. It's rare to spot other boats here, which adds to its appeal. Perched on my deck, I savor a simple meal in profound silence. The utter lack of noise is almost overwhelming, especially in the evenings when the winds have settled. It's perfection. I relish the sight of the rocks, bathed in the warm, reddish-yellow hues of the setting sun. It's truly breathtaking. Suddenly, The silence is shattered by the sound of an engine. Initially, I assume it's a fishing boat heading back, but the noise grows louder. Eventually, a massive white motor yacht emerges from behind the island. Cursing under my breath, I realize my quiet, solitary evening is now a thing of the past. It'll be overrun by boisterous and discourteous partygoers, and it's too late and too dark to seek refuge on another island. Damn. As the yacht draws nearer, the object looms larger and more unattractive. The thumping beats of techno music grow louder. This is going to be just wonderful, I mutter sarcastically. The yacht edges closer until its bow is a mere 5 meters away. This proximity no longer feels respectful. A man in a black suit emerges at the bow, looking utterly out of place amidst the Aegean Sea. He calls out to me. "Hey, buddy, so this here's Fulvio Brione's yacht. You know, the fashion bigwig," he yells over the blaring music. I simply nod, unsure why he's informing me and with no desire to find out. "Listen, do us a favor and move your little boat out of here. We need this spot and some privacy," he continues. I chuckle briefly and shake my head. "We'd like to resolve this amicably, buddy, but this spot belongs to Mr. Brione. This is public property. I was here first, so it's mine. You'll have to anchor elsewhere." "Not my problem," I retort. "Getting a bit ticked off here," he grumbles. I simply raise my shoulders. His tactic appears to be aimed at provoking me, whatever he hopes to accomplish with it. Nonetheless, it's ineffective. I couldn't care less about this fool. He retreats. I refocus on my beer until he re-emerges a few minutes later. "How about €1,000 for you to relocate?" These individuals are quite amusing. "Keep your spare change." "Asshole." I merely gesture him away dismissively. He disappears once more. Eventually, the ship reverses course, heading towards the second-best anchorage, which is nearly out in the open sea. They anchor their vessel about 30 meters from mine, which is uncomfortably close for my liking. But there's nothing I can do about it. I strive not to become angry by choosing to view the whole situation as a free spectacle for my amusement. The ship is aglow with lights like a circus, and some of the individuals on its deck can only be described as peculiar. The ostentatiously dressed men strut around like fools, while the women all sport high heels and black bikinis. I ponder what sort of deck they must have. I certainly wouldn't permit high heels on my teak deck. However, they appear to be obligatory aboard this vessel, much like the overall behavior. The men are preoccupied with self-admiration, and the women seem to serve decorative purposes. I'm astounded by how foolishly these people conduct themselves, and how highly they think of themselves. Undoubtedly, they don't hold a favorable opinion of me either. It's as if we're from different worlds. In addition to the peacocks and bikini-clad women, there are a few men in black suits on board, evidently bodyguards. Then there are the individuals in white uniforms, likely part of the crew. The bikini-clad women appear to be fashion models. Some are merely slender, while others are extremely thin. It's reminiscent of observing a conference on malnutrition. My initial instinct is to assist these poor, emaciated girls by offering them food. Occasionally, as I lounge on my boat, one of them peers down at me, prompting me to acknowledge the vast divide between us. They inhabit a glamorous realm of fashion, likely striving to carve out a niche through networking and engaging in relationships with influential individuals. They may perceive themselves as triumphant and indispensable to society. In contrast, I am a solitary, ordinary man with a beer in hand. While I may not be overflowing with happiness, I believe my existence surpasses theirs by far. I ponder about the women aboard this vessel. Perhaps they aim to ensnare a wealthy suitor, securing financial stability and social standing through marriage before they reach the perceived expiration date of 22. It dawns on me that I possess scant knowledge of their domain. How long can fashion models sustain their careers? 20, 30, 40? It remains a mystery to me. I find myself reflecting on Julia once more, and her scheme to marry and divorce a wealthy, unsuspecting man, specifically me. She completely deceived me. I genuinely cared for her, so discovering the true nature of our relationship and losing her caused me significant pain. Even now, It continues to affect me. My entire existence still revolves around her, albeit in a wholly negative manner. Suddenly, commotion on the deck of the luxurious yacht draws my attention back to the present moment. One of the women appears to be engaged in a heated argument with a small group of men, including Brioni himself. He stands out with his noticeable overweight stature among the crowd. His bodyguard stands beside him, and for a fleeting moment, it seems as though he might strike her. It's almost absurd as they all simultaneously turn their heads in my direction. Whatever their intentions were with her, they suddenly realize they have an observer. I merely offer a smile and raise my beer in a silent toast. The overweight man and the bodyguard usher her indoors, seeking more seclusion. Whatever intentions they harbor, they don't bode well from this vantage point. She appears to share the same apprehension, vehemently resisting them. The bystanders, including other girls and a handful of men, observe with indifference, a lack of empathy that astounds me. She's aboard their vessel, with no law enforcement nearby, utterly vulnerable. Yet no one feels compelled to lend assistance. Abruptly, she breaks free and dashes toward the bow. Brioni and his henchmen smirk and leisurely pursue her, aware she has nowhere to flee. She's in their clutches. It's their ship. They possess the strength, wealth, and influence. They could easily ruin her career. They advance like predators, closing in for the kill. Witnessing this ordeal turns my stomach. It's unjust. I feel a strong urge to intervene somehow, but I'm at a loss for how to act. The girl, filled with panic, scans her surroundings and shouts at the other passengers, but they simply ignore her, turning away. Just as I decide to grab my camera, she unexpectedly leaps overboard. This action startles everyone, myself included. The drop is considerable, yet she executes the jump gracefully, looking stunning in her high heels. It's a courageous move, but it won't solve her dilemma. She's got nowhere to flee. Or so I think until I realize she's swimming toward me. Despite her elegance, I can't admire the scene anymore. She's encroaching on my privacy. What options do I have? Send her back to those disrespectful men. Would I be any better than them? No, that's out of the question. I couldn't live with myself afterwards. The alternative is to take her in, to relinquish my cherished solitude. Worse yet, I'd have to be in the company of a woman, something I've sworn never to do again. Ugh, just what I don't need right now. A woman nearby. And not just any woman, but a fashion model. Probably a spoiled, entitled brat, always whining and complaining, fully embracing her bulimia. I can practically hear her now. I can't eat this salad, it's not organic. Do you have Evian instead of this San Pellegrino? Where's my morning avocado? This boat is a joke. She's still swimming towards me. Great. A damsel in distress. Potential female company. I'm freaking out. It's too late to sail away now, and I can't exactly turn her away if she wants to come aboard. She looked like she was in trouble on that ship. Fine. I'll take her to the nearest port tomorrow. She's just reached the ladder at the back. I'll help her up, but that doesn't mean I have to engage in much conversation. Women are trouble for me. I need to steer clear of them. I'm determined never to get hurt by one again. I need to keep my distance from this one. Deciding this helps me calm down a bit. I haven't spent months reclaiming my sanity just to have it wrecked by the next woman. She gazes at me with a questioning expression, and I simply reach out my hand to assist her out of the water. No words are necessary, which suits me just fine. While I may have an unexpected guest for a brief period, I have no intention of engaging in endless chatter because of it. The situation speaks for itself. She's aware that I witnessed the incident on Brioni's ship, and my extended hand communicates my willingness to help. Wait, she's still wearing her high heels as she prepares to step onto my teak deck. I gesture towards her shoes, and she immediately comprehends. Oh, of course, sorry. She begins to remove them. I'm Anna, by the way. Mark. Blast it. A few moments in female company, and I'm already blabbering like a fool. She extends her hand once more. Our initial handshake seems insufficient. considering I only helped her aboard. I understand her gesture and shake her hand again, a combined greeting and expression of gratitude. She rises to her feet, surveying her surroundings at a leisurely pace. It's evident she's not so much taking in her new environment as allowing me the chance to assess my unexpected guest. Perhaps she's simply affording me time to acclimate to her presence after thrusting herself into my home in such an involuntary manner. It strikes me as a considerate gesture given the circumstances. I can't help but wonder what a woman with a hint of sensitivity has been doing aboard that jerk ship. I don't necessarily need to hear her story, but I fear I'll end up hearing it sooner or later anyway. My latest visitor is an exceptionally attractive woman, fitting the expectations for one of Brione's companions. Contrary to my assumption, she's not as young as I initially thought. Likely in her mid-20s, she's only a few years younger than myself. Anna doesn't fit the conventional girl-next-door type of attractiveness. She's not simply cute or pretty. She embodies sheer beauty, and there's no denying it. If I were to see just a photograph of her, I'd immediately assume she's conceited and self-absorbed. Her features demand it. With well-defined jaw and cheekbones, striking green eyes, and a perfectly straight nose. Not cute, but elegant, almost model-like. While she leans towards the slender side, she doesn't have that starved look some others do. Her bones aren't protruding, and she boasts petite yet well-proportioned breasts. Her hair, still damp, appears quite dark, making it hard to discern the exact color, but it's undeniably long. I used to think Julia was stunning and out of my league, but compared to Anna, she seems ordinary and unremarkable. Anna is so far beyond what I imagined as attainable for me that it's not even amusing anymore. In the past, encountering someone like Anna would have ignited my desires intensely. However, I've made a conscious decision to exclude women from my life, and I believe I've successfully conditioned myself in that regard, with Julia's malevolence serving as potent motivation. I can admire Anna's beauty, much like I would admire a butterfly or a flower, without it stirring any desire within me. At least that's the narrative I keep repeating to myself. After allowing me a moment to observe her, she looks back at me. "Thank you for your assistance," she says, sounding somewhat hesitant, almost shy, which surprises me. Women who possess her appearance aren't typically shy. I expect them to be assertive and self-assured. However, it dawns on me that she genuinely requires my help, and much hinges on how I respond. I respond quietly, nodding. I want to establish early on that conversation isn't a priority for me. She looks at me with a puzzled expression, shrugs, and accepts the towel I offer her. Eventually, she smiles, likely labeling me as a grumpy sea dog, which I don't mind as it's not far from the truth. I observe the oddly lit vessel once more and notice Brione, engaged in conversation with two of his bodyguards. He appears animated, gesturing towards my boat intermittently. Could he be contemplating boarding my yacht to retrieve the girl? Engaging in piracy in Greek waters would invite more trouble than even someone like Brione would desire, especially for a woman he could easily replace. He likely possesses an aversion to losing in any circumstance, even trivial ones like rock, paper, scissors. But who am I to speculate? Best not to delve too deeply, old chap, lest you become more entangled than you bargained for. Simply steer clear of those peculiar individuals. I look around and notice that she is watching the same scene, looking worried. There is no usual arrogance in her behavior. "I hope this jerk doesn't send his thugs to grab me," she remarks. I reply, shaking my head dismissively. "He could, you know. He has 4 guards he could set on me. Can we just sail away?" "What is it?" she asks. "Tomorrow," I reply shortly, keeping some distance. "Good. I doubt I'll sleep well. I'm still a little on edge." "Thanks again for intervening. They were just about to attack me," she says, ignoring my terse answers. But her revelation surprises me. I ask before I realize I'm prying into something that's none of my business. Damn it, it's none of my business. Yes, Brian, his male guests, his bodyguards, the entire male team. The others weren't thrilled, but they accepted it. Well, something just broke. I've endured a lot for very little. but today was the last straw. Damn it. Indeed. I turned down Fulvio Brioni, and one small refusal and my career is over. This chapter of my life is already closed, she says, shocked by her own realization. I simply nod and emit a grunt, perhaps sounding sympathetic or not. Despite its beauty, this fashion industry is utterly terrible. Yeah, you're right, she continued, even though I hadn't spoken. Maybe it's for the best this way. There's nothing I can do about it now, right? Leave the past behind. Try something new. New opportunities will come. Life is about change. She appears surprisingly optimistic again. How can she brush off something that completely shattered the life she thought she had? I wish I could. Or do I? Feeling hungry? Seriously. I'm always hungry. It's part of my job description. I've been hungry for 10 years now. She laughs. It's enchanting. Damn, what a woman. No, stop this, you fool. All right? Just stop. To distract myself, I descend below deck to fetch some omelet for her. She follows me and looks around. Without a word, I offer her a plate with some omelet. Maintaining my sour mood is surprisingly difficult when she's nearby. But it must be done. There's no point in allowing myself to fancy this woman. I'm quite certain it won't lead to anything good. Wow, that looks really tasty. Thanks. Do you live alone here? I nod, making a concerted effort to keep my interaction with this woman to a bare minimum, fearing her infectious, upbeat demeanor. Do you happen to have some clothes I could borrow? I didn't have time to pack, she says with that same dazzling smile. I nod again and retreat to my austere cabin to fetch her some sweats. It's hard to maintain my grumpiness in the face of her smile. Feel free to use one of the forward cabins, I tell her as I hand over the clothes. Thanks. Are they all available? Again, I simply nod. Why does someone like you live all alone? How do you manage to keep the women away? What? The shock on my face elicits that melodic laugh once more. Then, seeing my confusion, she lets up. Never mind. I'll go change. It's getting chilly in this damp bikini. There's more warmth in her smile than one would expect from a haughty fashion model as she turns and heads forward. I watch her for a moment, admiring her beauty from behind just as much as from the front. I shake my head, trying to decipher her cryptic comment. Over the years, Julia repeatedly emphasized to me that I was just an ordinary guy, with nothing particularly special or appealing about me. She often reminded me how fortunate I was to have her, and I eventually internalized her words. Now, this stunningly beautiful woman, a genuine fashion model no less, was inquiring about how I managed to fend off other women. With some time on my hands while she changed, I pondered this question. 2 minutes later, she approached me, effortlessly making my worn-out sweats look better than they had any right to. But then again, she was a fashion model. Quick changes and looking impeccable were part of the job description. Contrasting this with Julia, who could take half an hour just to switch shoes, I found myself amused at the thought of adapting to a woman who dressed swiftly. Hey, you've got a welcoming demeanor. I don't think you're as grouchy as you pretend to be, she remarked with a smile. I'm struggling not to reciprocate her smile. I manage somewhat. As her hair dries, it's clear she's a brunette. Not that it matters. She'd look stunning with any hair color. Damn it, Mark, resist this. It'll only lead to trouble and heartache. Mind if I stay below deck? I'd rather not remind Fulvio of my presence. I respond, trying to keep my replies brief, though it's starting to feel absurd even to me. All right, see you tomorrow. Could I borrow your ebook reader? I nod once more and retreat into the safety of my cabin, grateful to be alone again. On deck early in the morning, I'm consistently grouchy. My sole companion, a cup of coffee, doesn't seem to mind. I could remain in bed, but then I'd be left to dwell on Julia. That's not productive. Yet, even if I try to avoid it, thoughts of her persist. Julia despised my morning grumpiness. Now that she's no longer here to scold me, I've grown accustomed to this mood. I can wallow in self-pity about how life, truly, Julia, has treated me, without anyone to object. The racket from Brionne's floating whorehouse finally ceased around 4 a.m. Now the ship appears and sounds deserted. I'm willing to bet they won't be stirring until noon. Good. I hear movement below deck. My unexpected guest seems intent on defying the stereotype I've assigned her as a fashion model. She's older than 20, not struggling with bulimia, not snobbish or hostile even when I'm almost rude to her. And now she's an early riser. What's next? She's a certified diesel mechanic. Morning. Her head emerges from the hatch. Morning, I reply, sure that my grumpy demeanor is evident. Coffee? In the galley, I respond. She disappears back down the hatch. It appears she's just as curt as I am in the morning, though much more pleasant to look at. Turning back to the sea, I see the calm surface of the bay reflecting images of Julia and her lover, intimately entwined, mocking me. Damn. I can hear my unwelcome guest making her way up onto the deck. Now that she's had her coffee, she'll be all cheerful and eager to chat about things I either have no interest in or would rather avoid discussing. And don't forget that dazzling smile of hers. Damn. I don't want anyone trying to lift my spirits. I just want to wallow. Alone. Don't I have the right to do that? Anna, now I recall her name, surprises me once more. She doesn't utter a word. Instead, she settles onto the deck beside me and fixes her gaze on the tranquil sea. The air retains its crisp freshness, and the relentless Greek sun has yet to scorch everything in its path. Oddly enough, all I can see now is the sea. Julia has vanished. A comfortable silence envelops us. So what's the deal? She suddenly inquires. Deal? You saved me. What do I owe you? She appears slightly anxious now, as if anticipating unfavorable news and dreading hearing it. Did everyone who helped you in the past expect something in return? Damn, I didn't intend to engage in so much conversation, and I certainly have no interest in delving into her past, but her question catches me off guard. Yeah? Pretty much. Your life must be pretty miserable then. Yeah, right. Any woman as stunning as she is would have men clamoring to do her a favor. It is. I study her. She's earnest. Her beautiful face wears an expression of complete desolation. I avert my gaze, unsure of what to say. This silence is anything but comfortable. I'm thinking it might be wise to leave before Brionne and his party wake up, I suggest. Is there anything you need from that ship? I ask her gently, surprised at my own tone. No, she replies firmly, as though she's rejecting her former high-fashion life and everything it entails. I acknowledge her response and prepare to depart. I hope she won't insist on helping me. Thankfully, she doesn't. Instead, she stands by the rail, silently watching the sea. Is that just her nature, or has she intuited that it's what I prefer? Either way, she seems to understand me better than I'd like. After stowing our coffee cups in the galley, I get to work. I retrieve and secure the mooring lines, fortunately managing without the dinghy. Bringing up the anchor with the winch motor will take some time and be noisy towards the end, but there's no avoiding it. Anna watches nervously as the noise increases, casting glances towards the floating whorehouse. With little wind, I start the diesel engine. I want to put some distance between us and Brionne, just in case the anchor winch has stirred someone on the whorehouse. Halcyon can move swiftly if necessary, but I'd prefer to simply vanish. I watch as Anna visibly relaxes, her tension dissipating with the diminishing size of Brionne's yacht until it finally vanishes from sight. Surprisingly, she appears even more radiant, a transformation I hadn't anticipated. She sits beside me, content and peaceful, while I take the helm. With Brionne's vessel now out of sight, I grow weary of the diesel engine's incessant hum. I hoist the sails and silence the motor. Ah, the blissful quiet. Only the sounds of the wind, the waves, and the fluttering sails remain. I adjust the sails and return to steering. A comfortable silence settles between us once more. Occasionally, I glance over at Anna, who sits calmly, lost in contemplation of the ocean. With Brion gone from view, she exudes an air of tranquility and ease. It strikes me as peculiar. She doesn't resemble someone who has just forsaken a career coveted by many. If it were Julia in her place, not that she ever would be, but hypothetically speaking, she would be anything but serene. Anxious, perhaps. Demanding and frantic, certainly. But serene? Not a chance. Unless, what if Anna is sizing me up just like Julia did? Perhaps she's concluded that since I allowed her aboard, I must be the one to foot the bill for her accustomed lifestyle. Is that why she seems so carefree? Oh, damn, I think, here we go again. Henry Higgins was onto something. Invite a woman into your life, and your piece is history. I swore I was done with that forever. I glance at her. She's turned away, gazing pensively at the sun-drenched ocean beyond the port rail. She appears utterly innocent. But then again, I remind myself, she's a model. Well, an ex-model. They can project any image they choose. I glance up to check the sails, then out to starboard. What did she do to you? Her question interrupts my thoughts. How does she know? I stare blankly at her. Well, damn it, the morning was nearly perfect until now. Nothing. Just a regular guy. Sure, handsome, obviously well off, sailing solo on a stunning boat trying to mask his niceness with grumpiness. What's up, handsome? I've noticed the first imperfection in her. She definitely needs glasses. You should discuss it sometime. We're all alone here, and I'm a good listener, but I don't want to push. Thanks. Wow. Am I that transparent? Yes, you are. I turn my head abruptly and she just laughs. I can't help but grin. Man, maintaining my guard isn't going too smoothly. All right, I'll play along. What's my next move? She blushes slightly. I can't predict what you'll say, but I do notice you attempt to maintain your distance by staying silent. She inhales deeply and meets my gaze squarely. Her expression reflects resolve, yet I sense a hint of compassion in her eyes. Or perhaps it's my own projection? You've endured significant pain. Your instinct is to withdraw and shield yourself from further harm, fearing another injury. It's a natural response. Even animals do it. But eventually, you must unfurl and resume your journey. Though you move and converse, fear still grips you, especially in interactions with women. I understand. Yet by isolating yourself, you confine your pain as your sole companion. What eludes you is that dwelling on your wounds only perpetuates the hurt, worsening your anguish. You deny yourself any solace by shutting out the world, leaving no one to witness your struggles. I envisioned myself enduring noble isolation, shielding myself so that no one, especially no woman like Julia, could ever inflict upon me what she had. But what if all I'm doing is brooding? I decide to give her the basics. Maybe she'll cease talking and I can gather my thoughts, or brood, or whatever. Okay, I was married to the woman who had been my closest friend since childhood, but it ended disastrously. She cheated? Yeah. And in the end, all she wanted was my money. So you understand why I'm a bit wary, especially when it comes to women. That should buy me some time. But it doesn't. I'm sorry, I figured it was something along those lines, but now you're allowing her to keep hurting you and preventing you from finding happiness. It's a pity that you're giving her that much control over you. Listen, you'll have to address it eventually. You can't just bottle all of that up inside, it's not healthy. And who better to talk to than someone you won't ever see again? I glance at her in surprise. I suppose she's not making advances towards me after all. Don't fret. I already knew you intended to part ways with me at the next port. So your secrets are safe with me. She paused. Would it make a difference if I shared my story? I paused to consider. If she's sharing her story, she's not probing into mine, attempting to help me move beyond the pain of Julia. That unsettles me. But what if her experiences have been more challenging than mine? Yet, she's coped better. Then I'd have to expose myself to this intriguing stranger whose life is vastly different from mine. What would that mean for me? She interrupts my thoughts. Are we back to silence now? Her grin is contagious, like that of a playful child. I almost return the smile, but catch myself. No emotional ties, I remind myself. Don't let her affect you. Too late, she says, still grinning. Damn, she caught me again. I need to be cautious around her. Gradually, her smile fades and her gaze shifts to the distant horizon. She speaks in a flat, rehearsed tone. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew me. There were kids who were smarter or more talented, but I was the one expected to make it big in the world. To be famous, you know. When all you're valued for is your looks, that means modeling. I quickly discovered I was at the bottom of the hierarchy. Quite a shift from being the princess of my little town. Suddenly, I was constantly told I wasn't good enough. Over and over again, in the cruelest and most painful ways. She turns to me, her eyes pleading for empathy. Mark, receiving criticism on your work is tough enough, whether it's a project, a report, or anything else. But when that criticism extends to your own worth, delivered harshly and repeatedly, it can really take a toll, she said, pausing to gaze at the horizon. Like many models, I began to detach from my body as a form of self-preservation. It became more like a tool or a skill set than a part of me. I did everything I could to maintain it. Exercising, eating right, you name it. But still, I never felt good enough. I was constantly overlooked. Then I noticed a pattern. Directors were choosing girls they were already familiar with, often those who had socialized with them or higher-ups. Socialized, of course, was a polite term for something more intimate. It didn't matter if the director was male or female. It seemed like that was the expectation. I resisted at first, but the pressure of not landing any jobs became unbearable and I gave in. Surprisingly, most of them were respectful, even kind. By then, I had become accustomed to viewing my body as separate from myself. I was simply using it to secure work and during the jobs themselves. And slowly, I started to book gigs. Back in my hometown, seeing me in catalogs or advertisements brought immense joy to everyone. It was as though I carried the collective hopes and aspirations of the entire village. So I continued, even though I knew I'd never rise to the top, and I began to resent my life. I empathized more with girls stuck in abusive relationships. Their struggles became clearer to me, she concluded with a heavy sigh. I'm not really sure what ultimately made me change my mind. I have already been on Brioni cruises and understood what is usually expected of me. But for some reason, whether it's a competition or a group meeting, I've reached my limit. I hid in my cabin until the guards pulled me out, and you witnessed the rest. She pauses, turning to me. They never expected me to have the courage to jump. I probably wouldn't have done this if your boat hadn't been nearby and if I hadn't heard you arguing with them earlier that day. I was terribly scared last night, afraid that Brian would send his thugs after me. Believe me, for once I felt relieved that I had become just another interchangeable person. I wonder if I've ruined their bet. She muses, and a smile plays on her lips. I smile back to cheer her up. I still find it hard to believe that someone could reduce her to a simple, pretty face. But it's over now. I'm done with this. The villagers will need to find someone else to put on a show for them. So what if I'm unemployed and broke? I've been in this situation before and survived. I will never sell my body again and let people dictate what I'm worth. I do not know what lies ahead of me, but whatever it is, I am sure that everything will change for the better, because I am liberated. She smiles at me. I thought she couldn't get any more stunning, but once again I'm wrong. The vitality in her expression makes her shine. Now you probably think I'm a woman of easy virtue. She continues to smile, her eyes sparkling like stars. What should I say to that? Fortunately, she's probably used to men being speechless when she treats them like the best. I mumble something about choice and honesty, hoping it makes some sense until she helps me out. You know, in a way, I'm still innocent. My jaw drops and she giggles. I was right. I could definitely get used to hearing that laugh. I remember telling you how I came to realize that my body is different from my heart, which I consider to be my true essence. Although both men and women used my body, and although I sometimes found some pleasure in it, I never really experienced love. No one has ever shared my heart, she says without looking away. All I've ever truly desired is what my mother possesses. A serene existence with a kind-hearted partner and a home filled with love. I may have lost my way for a while, but no more. Then her smile returns. Her determination and optimism are so palpable that I feel a little weak and pathetic compared to her. I apologize for a moment and retire to the lower deck, where my emotions are hidden from her gaze. Returning with 2 glasses of chilled Sauvignon Blanc, we toasted her future, and suddenly it dawned on me that her charm lies not only in her appearance but in her whole being. I decide to tell my own story to take my mind off her. Yes, I still want to hear your story, she interrupts, still smiling. Am I really that outspoken? Yes, it is, but I'm still interested in hearing your story, I admit, puzzled by her insight. How does she do it? Well, there's another mystery that I'll solve later. So, I'm starting. I met Julia on my very first day at school. She was a sweet little girl and a couple of bullies were torturing her, so I stepped in. Since then, I became her protector, and she helped me with my studies, keeping me from doing stupid things. My family was rich, and hers wasn't. But such differences fade when you're still young. We were inseparable. She blossomed into a beautiful and popular girl, and she no longer wanted me to fend off the boys. She had other plans for them. We remained friends, but everyone, including my mother, insisted she was beyond my reach. I believed I was too unattractive. Your mother? Her tone carried shock. That's harsh, and completely inaccurate. Perhaps, but it still haunts me even now. Your mom must have needed glasses, or maybe she was tipsy. She confused you with 2 other guys. Hey, don't speak about my mother like that. I glare at her. For a moment, Anna takes me seriously, then bursts into laughter. I grin at her and continue my story. We ended up attending the same university. She reached out to me, wanting to talk. She'd encountered some arrogant jerks, as she put it, and remembered feeling safe with me back in elementary school. She hinted that there might be a chance for us after all. Naturally, I jumped at the opportunity. Before I knew it, I proposed. She said yes, and we were married. I felt like the luckiest man alive, until I returned home one day to find her in bed with another guy. I didn't even confront them. I just retreated to my study and nursed my wounds. She nods as if expecting that's how I would have reacted. She shed many tears, pleaded for forgiveness, and vowed to remain completely faithful, swearing never to repeat her actions. I resisted initially, but my desire to have her back was strong, so I eventually relented. You forgave her then? I nod. I might have forgiven one mistake as well, but it's evident she didn't uphold her promise. Anna reflects. Did she have money when you got married? No, why? You mentioned earlier that she pursued your money during the divorce. I'm speculating, but what if she perceived your wealth as power in the relationship? What if she felt insecure because of that? I loved her. I did everything for her. Why would she feel insecure? Perhaps dependent is a better word. Nonetheless, I wonder if her infidelity was an attempt, whether conscious or not, to balance things, maybe to assert some power for herself and make you somewhat dependent on her? Are you defending her now? I'm starting to get irritated with her, to be honest. No, not at all. There are no justifications for breaking promises like that. None that hold true anyway. I'm considering your perspective. You're stuck in this lonely, isolated state. You're not just suffering, but you're also not content, and you won't be until you begin to live again. To achieve that, you need to grasp at least a fragment of why she treated you so cruelly. How do you know all this? I try to inject sarcasm, but she doesn't seem to catch it. She gazes at the horizon before replying. I don't know. I just do, I guess. She offers a wistful smile before turning back to face me. Go on. What happened next? I take a deep breath and recount the moment my world fell apart. It's almost embarrassing to admit how it all began. It was supposed to be a typical snooker night with my friends, but the power outage at the pool hall changed our plans. They suggested hitting the bars instead, but I opted for spending time with my wife at home. When I arrived, I found our apartment aglow with candlelight and soft music, one of our little traditions. It seemed one of my friends must have tipped Julia off about my early return. I followed the trail of candles to our large bathtub. There she was, wearing that post-coital grin, sharing kisses and soap bubbles with some guy. I stood there, unsure of how to react. All I could manage was to clear my throat. That's where the expected narrative diverged. They both turned to face me, but instead of shock or guilt, they greeted me with smiles. A sudsy hand extended towards me, and the guy introduced himself. Hi, I'm Andy. Nice to finally meet you. As the bubbles dispersed, I could see him nestled with my wife, their arms around each other. It was at that moment that I came to understand the reality of the situation ahead. The breakdown of my marriage. The conclusion of a love I had cherished for a lifetime. I stood there, shocked, struggling to hold back tears. The couple in front of me observed with a sense of empathy. I guess the bathwater hadn't cooled yet. Mark, don't be so distraught. It's not a huge issue. I still love you just as much as ever. This doesn't jeopardize you or our marriage. Nothing has to change. It was like she was speaking a foreign language with how little sense she was making. So you plan to continue with this? Absolutely, Mark. I love both of you. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but it was inevitable, so maybe this is for the best. I'm glad you've met Andy. I think you two will get along. I was speechless, so I just stood there. Julia mistook my stunned silence for agreement and pressed on. You see, Mark, I've realized that I have feelings for two men. Andy has already accepted it. And I know you will too once you see how happy we can all be. You're my husband, so naturally, you'll have me most of the time. However, now that you know, I'll spend some nights with Andy. I'll do it when you're out with your friends. You won't even notice I'm gone. And when we decide to start a family, Andy will use protection so we can be certain the children are yours, right, Andy? Andy nodded eagerly. So you see, Mark, our marriage will be stronger and everything will work out fine. What about your commitment to staying faithful? Oh, that. Well, I suppose I rushed into it. Besides, I hadn't met Andy yet. Does meeting Andy justify breaking your commitment? Oh, Mark, don't be so dramatic. Consider this. Andy and I have been together for over 2 months. Have you received any less love from me? Less affection or intimacy? No, if anything, our intimacy has improved since I've been with Andy, and you know it. He's not your competition, Mark. You see, Andy is the artistic type, unpredictable, spontaneous, the opposite of you. You're the better lover because you know me so well, but I also enjoy his company because he surprises me. I love you, Mark. You're not losing me. This doesn't have to be a big issue unless you make it one. She had been having an affair for 2 months, and I was completely unaware. She showed no remorse. Instead, she demanded my acceptance. Her promise of fidelity meant nothing. I could feel the pain seeping into my heart as I watched my smiling wife and her lover. What if I refused to accept this? She still smiled, but there was now an edge to it. I hate to say this, Mark, because I love you and I hope it never comes to this, but you need to understand. If you divorce me over this, I have to protect myself. Andy and I, you know. I'll make sure I get at least half of everything you own. I don't want to, but I will if I have to. Mark, don't look so sad. Remember, I've loved you since I was 6. It shouldn't be that difficult a decision. Continue enjoying everything you have now, including your loving wife, or lose me, your home, and half of everything you own. She and her lover exchanged their warmest smiles with me, inviting me to accept my betrayal at their hands. I'm sure I had the same dumbfounded expression on my face that a cartoon character gets when hit in the head with a brick. Andy couldn't resist chiming in again. Hey, Mark. It is Mark, right? Why don't you stick around and join us? Oh, that's a fantastic idea, Julia exclaimed before I could say anything. Come on, Mark. Don't be such a party pooper. It'll be fun. You'll see. She playfully blew suds at me and then kissed Andy on the nose. I'd had enough. I turned and walked away. I could hear them whispering to each other, giggling now and then. I didn't realize I'd said anything amusing, but you never know. I packed a small overnight bag and left. I pause. I've been so wrapped up in recounting the story that I've forgotten Anna is even present. Nonetheless, she was right. I needed this. I booked a hotel room and went through the motions you'd expect. Tears, curses, pounding the mattress before finally falling asleep in a chair fully dressed. None of it made a difference. But when I woke up, something had shifted. Julia wasn't the girl I once protected or the woman I loved. She had become my adversary. My sole focus was safeguarding my assets from her and her lover. It wasn't about the money per se, but the principle of paying her for betraying me felt fundamentally wrong. I had a significant advantage unbeknownst to my wife. My wealth wasn't truly mine. It was tied up in a trust fund set up by my cunning grandfather, who harbored a deep distrust of women. He stipulated that I would receive a generous monthly allowance until I turned 40 or after my first divorce, whichever came first. He believed I would have learned life's lessons by then. Legally, I had minimal assets when Julia ended our marriage. Ironically, the divorce was about to make me wealthy. I promptly consulted my family lawyer, who assured me that the worst-case scenario would be a brief period of alimony. I dreaded the thought of giving her assent, but it was a compromise I could accept. The lawyer handled all the arrangements, ensuring Julia couldn't abscond with anything, and initiated the divorce proceedings. He predicted things would get interesting once she realized the new reality. Meanwhile, I found a comfortable apartment and moved in with only what I needed. Julia didn't reach out for a whole week, and when she finally did, it was a text, questioning if I had moved past my hurt feelings and was ready to return home. I didn't respond. For someone who supposedly loved me so deeply, she seemed remarkably unaffected by my absence. My lawyer had been right. Exactly 2 weeks after our meeting, the flood of texts and messages started. It seemed her lawyer had enlightened her on the reality of her financial expectations. Initially, she pleaded for my return, promising boundless love and a stronger marriage. Then she chalked it all up to a misunderstanding, expressing confidence in fixing everything. Eventually, she resorted to urging me to toughen up, citing Andy's acceptance of the situation. Then, abruptly, the communications ceased. A few days later, her lawyer presented a postnuptial agreement, claiming I had signed it, granting her $20,000 per month for life in case of divorce. However, this claim fell apart under scrutiny, as handwriting experts discredited Julia's credibility. They attempted to pivot to accusations of domestic violence but lacked evidence. Ultimately, realizing the weakness of their position, they settled for far less than initially demanded, $2,000 per month for a year, along with hefty legal fees. Legally, I had prevailed. Yet emotionally, I felt drained and avoided any female interaction, retreating into a reclusive existence. I become silent. The only sounds are the wind in the rigging, and the waves beneath the bow. Anna remains quiet. I gaze at her. Tears flow down her face. You know what? She remains beautiful. I'm deeply sorry, Mark. That's awful. I understand your pain. Oddly enough, I feel less hurt after sharing the story with her. I wouldn't have expected that. But Mark, you can't continue like this. Don't you see? She's not worth sacrificing your life for. She never cared about your happiness. And now you're allowing her to make you miserable. She speaks with fervor, determination evident on her face even as the tears dry on her cheeks. Mark, you must keep living. If you don't, you've let her destroy you. I flinch. It's quite extreme, but I can tell she means every word. She gives me time to ponder that before interrupting my thoughts. So, you're a hermit now. That playful, teasing smile returns to her face, and the sparkle returns to her eyes. Yeah, I suppose so. Yesterday, I would have proudly admitted it. Now, I'm not so sure. Your place is much nicer than those bushy-bearded guys used to have. Thankfully, yes. But promise me you'll leave it soon. You need to start living again, Mark. Her voice is gentle and warm. I look into her eyes and see genuine concern. A lump forms in my throat, and all I can do is nod. She steps back from the moment. Good, she says. Now that that's settled, maybe I can catch some sun. Her smile challenges me, yet also invites me to watch as she gracefully stands and walks toward the bow. People actually told this girl she wasn't pretty enough? Yikes. I accept her invitation and enjoy the view as she steps forward towards the mast, rolling up my sweats into a makeshift pillow and reclining on the deck. There's nothing else out here nearly as captivating as she is, and I'm quite certain she's aware of it, despite her kindness. Her flowing, lengthy hair spreads out and catches the breeze. She appears magazine cover perfect, even without a photographer. But there's more depth to her than just appearance. She possesses kindness. The significance of simple kindness is often overlooked, but it's anything but ordinary. She's empathetic. She shed tears when I shared about Julia, somehow easing my pain. Is she telepathic? I hope not. Yet in less than 24 hours of knowing me, she seems to understand me and my thoughts too well. But is she correct about me? Should I abandon my isolation? I can't endure another experience like what happened with Julia. It would destroy me. But if I'm allowing Julia to slowly destroy me, as Anna suggested, what's the distinction? I ponder while still gazing at her. And what about her? She left her previous life behind, much like I did, albeit in a more dramatic fashion. While I hide from the world, fearing hurt, she seems eager to embrace whatever comes next in her life, even if she's uncertain what that entails. Moreover, her outlook is infectious. Just being near her is diminishing my fear of living again. I almost sense that with her I could... No, she's clearly out of my league. Perhaps somewhere out there, though, there's a girl like Anna, albeit not as stunning, with whom I could build a life. My mind wanders freely as my gaze remains captivated by Anna's slow, rhythmic breathing and the tantalizing glimpse of her abdomen and bosom, scarcely concealed by the tiny black fabric scraps. Mark. Oh, shoot, she's caught me staring. I thought she wouldn't notice with the sunglasses on. Maybe models always have a sixth sense, I don't know. Where are we headed? She asks, sounding indifferent. Naxos. So is that where you were planning to ditch me? She flips onto her stomach, takes off her sunglasses, and grins at me. No, not ditch you, I wouldn't, but, well, not like I had intended to. Oh, shoot. Now she's chuckling. I'm sorry, Mark, I shouldn't tease like that. I know it's not nice, but it's been so long since I've had someone to joke around with. Can you forgive me? I smile and nod. I feel like I could forgive her anything if she looked at me like that. But then that cynical voice in my head reminds me of how manipulative some women can be. No, Mark. I'm not like that, she says gently and sincerely. Darn it, she's doing it again. I sense that she understands why I need to hear it and is willing to reassure me as many times as necessary. Wait, am I starting to understand her now? What's happening here? So, am I disembarking at Naxos? No. I mean, not unless you want to, or if you really need to, but you can if you want. I really enjoy having you here, but I wouldn't. Oh, darn. You can stay for as long as you'd like. She's enjoying my stumbling over my words way too much. I take a deep breath. I had planned to stop there anyway to stock up on supplies, and you might want to grab some clothes, is the story I'm sticking to. What's wrong, sailor, not enjoying the view? She stands up and leans against the mast, striking a pose like a movie star. I stare in amazement. She laughs, then turns serious again. You know I don't have any cash or credit cards, and I'm not sure if I can access my bank accounts from Naxos. I might not be able to pay you back, at least not right away. I pretend to consider while approaching her. Well, perhaps I can come up with a way for you to repay me. I'm struggling to maintain a straight face, but I must be doing well. She gives me a look that says, "Oh no, not him too." How are your knot skills? I ask, still serious. She takes a slight step back from me. What kind of knots? There's a hint of nervousness in her voice I hadn't noticed before. Sailor's knots. Halcyon doesn't sail herself, you know, and since you're here, you might as well pitch in. I grin as she chuckles and playfully punches my arm. I almost had you there, didn't I? I enjoy having the upper hand in this banter. Looks like someone else has been deprived of some light-hearted fun for too long. She smiles at me. We sit opposite each other on the front deck as I begin to teach her a few knots. Despite the sail providing some shade from the intense Greek sun, it's still quite warm, prompting me to remove my shirt. Occasionally our eyes meet, and we exchange smiles. It's strange to have someone as striking as her look at me that way, but not so strange that I couldn't get accustomed to it. It's been a while since I felt this relaxed around a woman. We adjust the foresail more for practice than necessity. She surprises me with her athleticism, and it's a delight to watch her move. As my bikini-clad companion assists me in docking Halcyon, I become the envy of the waterfront. She executes my instructions flawlessly, giving the impression she's been doing this all her life. Any preconceptions I had of her being just another superficial model quickly dissipate. Donning my sweats, we head into town. Our first stop is the bank, where Anna discovers she can't access her funds from Italy and Germany without her ID or debit card. Consequently, she's shopping on my dime. Despite my initial cynicism, she defies stereotypes and opts for practical purchases, seeking my advice on footwear. Her selections are all of high quality but devoid of flashy embellishments. While she tends to her personal items, I take care of the food and supplies, and we both return to the town square weighed down with our purchases. As we departed from the docks, I had been amused by her perspiring in my clothes under the scorching midday sun. Now she's dressed in a delicate sundress, looking stunning, and it's her turn to chuckle as I stare in admiration while she leads me along. Undoubtedly, a considerable portion of Naxos's male populace wishes they were in my shoes. After boarding and stowing our purchases, we take a moment to unwind. Anna regards me earnestly. Each time I feel like I'm accustomed to her beauty, she looks at me differently or carries herself in a new manner, leaving me awestruck once more. "Thank you, Mark," she says. "I have some savings, and I'll reimburse you." "Shouldn't you keep your savings until you find a job or something?" "Well, perhaps, but I dislike owing debts to friends." Her smile is gentle, her eyes affectionate, and I feel a surge of panic. This is all happening too quickly for me. "We are friends," she reiterates. "Friends assist each other like you helped me last night even when you didn't really want to." We both acknowledge she's right. Friends don't harm each other. And whatever occurs, Mark, I won't hurt you. Ever. And you know, we're comfortable together. I was trying to recall when was the last time I felt simply at ease with a man. No expectations, no pressure, just friends. I can't even recall. You're becoming comfortable with me too. There's another thing. You know how I always seem to know what you're thinking? How I can read you? You're the only person I can do that with. Damn. I pretend disappointment. I was hoping you could read everyone like that and we could conquer the world. We share a laugh and she looks at me intently for a moment. So, my friend, what's the plan for tonight? Well, buddy. The word slips out before I can catch it, surprising me, but it fits just right. I have no idea. I'm notorious for being the guy without a plan. Perfect, she says with a grin, because I've got one, and it's flawless. You're going to take me ashore to that charming seafood spot we spotted earlier, and we're going to have an amazing dinner together. And then we'll head back on board and I'll fill you in on the rest of the plan. We venture ashore for dinner. The seafood joint isn't fancy. For a moment I wonder if Anna will feel out of place. I'm pretty sure they've never hosted a fashion model, even a former one before. But it's clearly a long-standing establishment, clean and well-maintained, so I'm optimistic about the food. Sure enough, all eyes are on us as we make our way to the restaurant and are seated. Anna's accustomed to this attention, but I'm not. Sensing my discomfort, she leans in. It's all right, Mark. I don't mind them ogling you. I'm not the jealous type. We share a laugh as we settle in. Luckily, places like this don't mind if you linger over dinner for hours. They take it as a compliment. The owner stops by a couple of times to express how delighted he is to see us enjoying his cuisine. If his real motive is to get a closer look at Anna, so be it. I can't blame him, and the food is delicious. There's something special about seafood that was swimming just hours ago. Most importantly, Anna is having a great time, and to my astonishment, so am I. At last, we leave the table. The proprietor and the waiter, probably the owner's son, bid us farewell as we stroll along the waterfront before returning to Halcyon. Anna links her arm with mine. She speaks sparingly. I remain silent. Once aboard, I raise the gangplank and face her. She leans into me, presses the gentlest kiss on my lips, then withdraws. The glimmer in her eyes, whether from the shoreline lamps or not, renders her, as always, irresistible. Thank you, she murmurs softly. I can't recall the last evening I've relished so much. She averts her gaze momentarily, concealing tears. After a pause, she meets my eyes again, a mischievous grin playing on her lips. Are you prepared to hear the rest of the plan? Yeah, sure, I suppose, she chuckles. Are you certain? She winks and raises one eyebrow slightly, reminding me of her earlier words. Promise me you'll start living again, Mark. All right, I'm game. What's the plan? I adopt a confident stance, hands on hips. Here's where I charm you. My eyes widen, mouth agape, arms dropping to my sides. The charm, you know, when I... And then you. She smiles at me as if I'm slowly learning, which is exactly how I feel. I manage to squeeze out an inarticulate reply. She giggles. Well, at least one part of you understands. Her gaze slides to my instrument. Anna, I thought you wouldn't want to rush into something after... I'm proud of myself for being able to tell you so much. Don't worry, Mark, we won't do intimacy. It seems to be my catchphrase. We're going to make love. She has a sincere look, a sweet smile, radiating warmth. I feel like I'm falling in love with her. Anna, you can have anyone. Why me? We fall in love with each other. Didn't you notice? I'm panicking again. Mark, I'm not Julia. I could never hurt you the way she did. Her tone is gentle, but firm. I believe her. She silently grabs my shirt and kisses me right on the lips. Wow, this is an incredible feeling. It's almost charming, like I've never kissed anyone before. When we finally pull away from each other, I notice tears in her eyes, and to my surprise, my own eyes become wet too. Without saying a word, she stands up, still holding tightly to my shirt. She roughly pulls me along and hurries to my cabin. Once there, she pushes me onto the bed. "You are incredibly beautiful." It would be awkward, and the thought cools my ardor a little. I'm still reveling in the aftermath, trying to comprehend the recent turn my life has taken. Why has this remarkable woman chosen me? Is it because of my wealth? I can't fathom any other explanation. Suddenly, I lift my head and meet her gaze. She's been observing me, a serene expression on her face. "No, Mark." "No?" "Because I love you. Not because of your money. Don't misunderstand me, money certainly facilitates things. But being with a man solely for his wealth is the furthest thing from my mind right now. The mere thought disgusts me. I'd willingly sign any prenup without hesitation." "Prenup?" "Well, in case we ever marry, of course, you never know." She grins playfully and bursts into laughter after a few moments. "It seems my destiny is already decided." Well, it could be worse. What? Am I insane? And even if you never considered it, I'm on birth control, and you're the first man I've ever been with without a condom. So you're safe. Oh my God, what a fool I've been. She just chuckles at my reaction. "You're adorable, Mark." "Oh. Mark, we need to consider our next steps." "Well, this boat's home port is Antibes." I'm not entirely sure if that's what she's referring to. "Great, do you have a car there?" "Yes." "A large one?" X5. "Excellent. That's one of those SUVs, right? If you don't mind, we'll drive to Milan from there. We can pick up my belongings there. The sorry remnants of my previous life. Oh, of course, it's almost on the way to Germany anyway." "Perfect. We're going to have a blast. I have a task ahead of me, and I'm going to enjoy it." "Your task?" "Yeah. I need to convince this guy that decent women exist." "Oh, so you want to reintroduce him to the female population?" "What? Are you serious?" "No, my motives are entirely selfish." I fear I'm staring quite rudely. This feels too perfect to be real. The 4 weeks it takes us to sail back to Antibes can only be described as idyllic. We spend our time immersed in intimacy, basking in the sun, indulging in delicious meals, and exploring various harbors. There's an unspoken agreement not to delve into discussions about the future, past relationships, diets, or fashion. Upon reaching Antibes, we pack our belongings, tidy up the boat, and load everything into my car. As we lock up the boat, there's a poignant silence between us. We've cherished our time together on the boat immensely, and now we both fear the inevitable return to reality, dreading potential changes. Though we don't vocalize these fears, our mutual understanding speaks volumes. The journey to Milan and then to Germany is uncomfortably quiet. Since her departure from Brion, I've maintained a stoic demeanor, but now I yearn for conversation to ease our anxieties and break the tension. While I'm unsure of her fears, I'm terrified of losing her once more. If I'm honest with myself, I've fallen deeply in love with her, and I'm afraid of being hurt again. For around 4 weeks we've been living in my condo, but it seems like the excitement has faded, replaced by an underlying tension. Although our intimacy remains satisfying and we enjoy each other's company, we're not as relaxed as we were on the boat. I'm seriously considering returning there to try and salvage our deteriorating relationship. I'm at a loss for what else to do, and we're both avoiding addressing the issue. As we watch TV together, I notice once again how uninteresting the program is. Yet, her nestled against me with her head on my shoulder is far more appealing. I entertain the idea of heading to the bedroom for some fun when the doorbell interrupts. Anna still refuses to answer the door or the phone in my condo, which is starting to frustrate me. It suggests she doesn't feel truly comfortable here. "Okay, Anna, I'll handle it." "Thanks." I unlock the door and come face to face with my worst nightmare. Julia. She's impeccably dressed, radiating beauty and malevolence. "Oh, darling, there you are at last," she chirps, throwing herself at me. Disgusting. Ignoring my lack of response, she steps back to observe me. "Well, well, don't you look stunning? Been catching some sun? It suits you." "Thanks. Aren't you going to invite me in?" "Please, come in, Julia," I hear from behind me, still pondering how to shake her off. With a frown, I step aside. "Thanks, and you are—" "Anna." "I'm Julia." "I know." What a bizarre exchange, I muse as I close the door. Their voices suddenly turn sharp. If words were knives, the floor would be awash with blood. "Please take a seat, Julia." "Thanks." I'm still keeping quiet. "So you're a friend of Mark's?" "I'm his girlfriend." "Are you being compensated for this? Are you insinuating that I'm a girl of easy virtue?" "Well, dear, let's not beat around the bush. You're quite attractive. Mark is very rich. I wouldn't imagine it's possible, some form of paid services." "No, I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to do your profession." "What? This is absurd. So you didn't marry him for money?" "No. Absolutely not. It was just a misunderstanding during his failed divorce. We were made for each other. I truly love him. So do I." "Darling, let's be realistic. Mark is a nice guy, but he's not on our level in terms of appearance. So, I don't believe for a moment that you're here out of love." "All right, darling. Let's discuss levels here. I certainly don't belong in yours. Don't underestimate yourself. I'm not. You're attractive, but I'm of model caliber." Now let's talk about Mark. He's handsome, incredibly fit, honest, sincere, and caring. He's a catch, 1 in a million. I would be thrilled to have him. If he proposed, I'd marry him without hesitation." "Seriously?" I ask, completely shocked. "You're just after his money, you expletive." "No. I'd willingly agree to any prenup." "Seriously?" I ask once more. "Of course, you fool. What do you think I've been waiting for all this time? Why do you think I've been so anxious since we left the boat?" What?" "Mark, please don't. This Anna woman is not right for you. You need me." I'm still in disbelief over my incredible luck, but I gradually rise to my feet and approach Anna. "Anna." "No, Mark, don't." "Yes." Anna's smile stretches from ear to ear. "Anna, will you—" "Mark!" Someone grabs my shoulder, attempting to halt me. I barely register it. I'm in a sort of trance, but I'm enjoying it. It's like a dream come true. It hits me that for 4 weeks I've been expecting Anna to leave me for good now that she's back in Germany. Can I really have her? Unbelievable. "Yes, I will." "Anna, please marry me." Yes! I can't seem to complete this cursed sentence, I mutter. "No, Mark." Julia finally releases my shoulder and Anna leaps into my arms. "Yes." "Damn, this can't be happening, Mark, don't do this." "Really? You will?" "Yes, Mark. Finally." I thought you'd never ask. I was so scared. This time I silence her with a kiss. "Well, looks like my presence isn't required anymore. Mark, I could have been so good for you. Instead, you choose this woman to tear you apart." "You're right, Julia." "What?" "You're no longer necessary here. I'm grateful for your visit. It was the best thing that could have happened to us. The best thing you've ever done for me." "Julia, I wish you all the best. I've forgiven you. It just doesn't matter anymore. But if you'll excuse us, we have something to attend to." "Anna, please don't hurt him, okay?" "I won't. Not like I did." Anna and I exchange surprised glances as Julia heads towards the door, the entrance, while we head towards another, the bedroom. I've definitely upgraded. I really owe Fulvio Brioni and Julia for making this dream a reality.